Good evening, this is Nerd to Human, and welcome to my Battlefield Tactics Guide for the Scipii in Rome Total War. This guide is relevant for both the remaster and the original version of the game, although if anything it is the phalanxes that were slightly nerfed in the remaster, so your Romans should have even less to fit than in the original. As always, this guide follows the campaign strategy guide for the Scipii, which includes some roleplay ideas and a touch of history, so do look out for that video. As for this video, I'll put the chapters in the description to signpost different topics for your convenience. To begin with though, we'll take a brief look at their roster before considering how to set up against the early game enemies of Carthage, the mid-game threats of Egypt, and finally the perfidious Romans in the late game civil war. Let's get started. Whilst the Romans do of course have themselves an excellent army, it's well worth considering that the early game is not going to be quite such plain sailing for them. Now the late game army has themselves pretty darn good infantry, cavalry, solid missiles and great siege gear. It kind of lacks things like elephants and chariots, those kind of wild cards. It does also lack horse archers, but on the whole, the Roman roster is very strong indeed. But we do need to bear in mind that this early game army is going to have its weaknesses. Against the Greeks, while we can indeed match up against their missiles and their cavalry, we might potentially struggle against hoplites once they start turning into armoured hoplites. Now these guys will start tearing through your pre-Marian units, so just keep a little eye on their tech levels. Against these guys though, you'll have no problem munching through them. The Carthaginians are a slightly different story, with absolutely awful infantry that you need not worry about at all, missiles that lack any archers that you have access to, and some cav that can be just a little bit problematic. They certainly have a cavalry advantage, with the long shield cav battering yours, and of course the elephants potentially causing you some big problems if you don't know how to deal with them. It's a similar story for Numidia as well, who have themselves a big cavalry advantage with the aforementioned long shield cav and the Numidian cavalry, who are far better than what you have. Also bear in mind that Numidian cav, these archers and the desert infantry are all available from large towns for Numidia. They get their decent units out nice and early. Worth bearing in mind. Now you do have the advantage in terms of the infantry, the missiles are pretty much the same, but the cavalry can cause you problems. So it's just something to think about. Here we are then in our early game battle, and to start us off we'll take a quick look at our Hastati and our Principe, our key units here. In the early game they're going to chew through pretty much anything that you come up against. 8 melee attack, 12 missile and 14 defense. That's pretty darn good, but of course it is that peeler that's going to make all the difference. 2 throws of those should pretty much soften up any of your potential targets, so do be making the most of those as much as possible. Now I have of course got Principe as well, just a small little boost as well to the morale. These guys will make a difference if you can bring them along to the field. In terms of formations, you can go for a classic checkerboard. To be honest, when you've got these smaller forces, it just makes sense to have a simple and a front line. Your infantry are pretty good. You might want a little backup as a second line, but you should generally be able to win that part of the battle. I would say you probably want to keep it tight simply because your cavalry are not always as strong as the opposition's. Well worth bearing in mind, by the way, we are in desert here, and that's going to give these guys a boost. Do bear that in mind, as the Scipii, you're pretty much always going to be fighting against enemies who have boosts, the likes of Carthage, Numidia, Egypt. These guys have the advantage here, so pick your time and place of battle carefully if you have the option. As for the rest of our troops, then we have the Velitae, a half decent unit to be honest. They've got themselves a decent missile of 8. And, you know, decent enough in the melee, but you want to be avoiding that as much as possible. Realistically, the most important thing for you to note is against elephants. These are going to be important if you don't have the pigs, and to be honest, especially against the early set of elephants from Carthage, you probably won't have the pigs available to you. But we do have our archer friends as well. You do get one of these at the very start of the game. It's a good idea to try and keep them safe. Not only is it a range advantage against the likes of Carthage, but of course flaming arrows is going to be massive against those elephant friends over there in the distance. On the nose of those horrible looking elephants over there, we will go and rush our archers over because it's going to be the best way of taking these guys out. So rush over here we will. And bear in mind, by the way, if you want to throw your peeler, do make sure you actually activate the button. What are the archers doing? Oh dear, you will find that units will go slightly wonky and awry, and Carthage are doing probably the only thing that's going to work for them, which is just to charge straight in. You can see an immediate route there. We're going to put them on guard just to actually hold position. But yes, having not got in time to these elephants, they're going to start ripping us apart. That could cause an awful lot of problems for us. Yes, do try and keep your units in good place. Luckily here, our infantry are strong enough to have actually held the line, and actually the elephants are fleeing. So it's a big positive mark here on the early game infantry. You can see it's just immediately repelled them, even with the elephant charge. We are going to head into a second battle just to make sure we can enjoy firstly the sunshine, but secondly see if a slightly stronger Carthaginian army can actually manage to do something. Roman general, by the way, pretty darn solid. He does have some extra boosts on him, just bear that in mind, but a decent all-rounded unit. Not going to last forever like the later game lads, but certainly some useful cavalry for you to utilise at this point of the game, because as I say, it's not your strength and it is something we're going to need to pay attention to. We will though try and shoot down these elephants. I've given the Carthaginians a few more units this time to see what they can do. But I think the main takeaway from what we've already seen is that you're basically going to win without needing to do all that much. If you keep yourself together and don't get yourself pulled forward, I think that's the thing. When they start retreating, bear in mind, particularly if they have cavalry like this, they could regroup and smash you quite easily. So keep your positioning. We're going to throw our javelins in. We're going to get our archers shooting into those elephants, see if we can burn them this time. And if not, we'll use the pigs to our advantage. So I suspect you're going to see once again that the Roman machine is going to hold very well. So I've got us on guard mode this time just to hold position. They won't kill as many like that, but they won't start running forward. I don't think we'll need to do an awful lot. I'm going to keep a very close eye on these cavalry out here because they could cause us quite a lot of problems. Sadly, we haven't got any elephants running from our archers this time, so we're going to send in the pigs pretty quick actually because they're causing us problems. Triarii going to hold off those cav over there. That's fine. The pigs have done their job to clear them off. A little bit awkward because they're already behind the lines. Not really ideal, but our Velitae are indeed going to go a little bit mad at this point. Again, covering all of these cavalry on the flank is going to be important, and we can try and chunk down the general. In fact, I'm going to send my general over there instead. I think that's going to be slightly more important. We can hold off the round shields in the short term. With the town watch running down the hill, they weren't on guard mode by the way. We're largely holding our position well, but you'll see here that some of them probably will regroup in a moment. Why to bring along the town watch, you might ask? Well, basically, they look incredibly cool in their capes. They're terrible units, but you can't deny that cape. With us holding our position on the hill, then you can see some of the damage this time. A little bit late with the elephants, as I say, means that we are going to take quite a bit of chunky damage. Nonetheless, you'll be absolutely fine as long as you don't get pulled forward, because yes, if those elephants come back, you can be in big trouble. It seems like on this occasion, we seem to have cleared them out, so archers can get back onto fire at will, and we'll basically just need to take out the cavalry. So down go the general's bodyguard, and to be honest, once those cavalry are largely defeated, they are going to do some horrible damage to our Hastati there. Lovely. We can, at this point, I think, just start running forward because at this stage they haven't really got anything else to hurt us with. So start sending everybody forward. That'll be absolutely magnificent. And I think the cavalry can make sure we finish off that general. So basically, early game, we've got ourselves the infantry advantage. Utilise that. Don't get them too stretched because you're always going to be a very strong position. You can keep your infantry together. We'll take out their general because that's all that needs to go down at this point. Easy enough victory. As I say, a bit late on the elephants over there, but you can see that they can cause a lot of damage if you're not careful. So use your flaming arrows, use your pigs. They did the job. Victory and glory. Into the post-Marian era, and we will have to say goodbye to the Triarii. We hardly knew ye. Indeed, you'll almost certainly only get one or two of these out, if any at all, by the time that the Marian reforms happen. Nonetheless, you can sometimes pick some up from the Senate, and hopefully you'll get to use them because they are good fun. Their replacements are not quite as strong, a couple stats worse off, but the Auxilia are decent enough against Cav. Nonetheless, you'll probably simply be picking your other heavier troops. Early legionary cohorts also have themselves a first cohort version. Very nice indeed, but a 5 defense boost up to legionary cohort. These guys are absolutely fantastic. One turn, you'll be pumping out an awful lot of these. As we go up to the Praetorian cohorts and the urban cohorts, we get ourselves a big attack boost. Oh, these guys are utter monsters. We of course have magnificent infantry, but what about our cav? Well, our cav has stepped up as well. Equitane to Roman cavalry is certainly a positive one. They don't rout anywhere near as easily. And quite frankly, Legionary Cav and the Praetorian Cav are pretty much indestructible. They are offensively good. As for your missiles, they've also improved. Long-range archers is better than an awful lot of other factions. Altogether, it's a pretty darn good increase in terms of the general stats of these units, and you're basically going to be able to win against any force as long as you're not a complete numpty. In we go to the mid-game then, when of course we are going to see our post-Marian troops, and we want to be focusing of course on our infantry. That is our strength as the Romans. Legionary cohorts are going to be the mainstays as our one-turn infantry unit, but of course we will also be seeing the likes of our Praetorian cohorts. You can see there from the stats a little bit of an increase, mainly to the actual melee attack. These guys do come out of the huge city, so you'll be seeing a fair amount of those too. So once again, we want to really be utilising our strengths, which are our infantry. We're going to let them come into us. It does look like they're trying to use a bit of a wide line against us. They do have cavalry as a potential advantage. Once again, this is not going to be nice. Yeah, so we might just go and try and deal with some of these generals, just send the dogs into them, try and clear them out. As ever though, we're going to try and utilise all of our excellent infantry. Now, the point of these guys, by the way, I did bring the gladiators along, the point of these guys really is to be a little bit of an auxiliary infantry unit. Now, they're not going to be very common in your army, but I do think they're quite good utility in terms of plugging gaps, and particularly, to be honest, trying to cover some random flanks. That's how I would use them. So we're going to use our cavalry here just to chase these guys off. Our cavalry are, well, very, very good eventually. But in this mid-game, we're still not necessarily as strong as we could be. You're going to find our Roman cavalry here about to get completely shredded. These are decent, a little bit more defence than our Equites. They're not going to rout quite as quick, and they'll be able to be probably fighting against most of the Egyptians, for example. But Egyptian chariots are very annoying indeed. So we probably want to be focusing our missiles on them, something that I could have done if I wasn't too busy commentating on the Legionnaires. So I'm going to bring these guys back into my defensive line at this point. But you probably see the way I've set up my infantry is to just make sure that we've got ourselves two lines here. Praetorian cohort at the front, legionary cohorts in behind. Now, of course, when you're taking on the Pharaoh's guard, the main thing with phalanxes is that they are not too manoeuvrable. So let's just make sure we get into the sides of them, shall we? So we'll just make sure people actually have some instructions, seeing as I'm too busy commentating. But this flank should be nicely secured with some of our cav. These guys not bad against those chariots over there. So let's go and do a bit of skirmishing with them. To be honest, taking on the Egyptians, if you don't take care of your flanks, you can very easily get mopped up, which is what you're seeing over here. So do we want the general in against him? We probably don't. These archers are going to be important, and you might actually want a few more archers than I've put in this particular army. Luckily, the general has indeed managed to clear them off, and we probably should be being just a little bit more aggressive with our infantry at this point. So I'm going to go and start sending people forward, and we're going to try and get around the flanks. Having seen our Roman cavalry collapse instantaneously, it's time for the legionary cav. An awful lot more defence on these guys. They are what you want to be getting out more and more of. Obviously, there are the Praetorians as well. But against the Egyptians, the chariots are a bit of a menace. Use your missiles to whittle them down, and then you can start to get your cavalry out. It might mean you need more archers. It might mean that you need more cavalry. You really just need to figure this one out as you go. Because these darn Pharaoh's guard will just stand and fight forever. There we go. They rout the second that I say it. But they are not manoeuvrable. You can eventually get around them. And that's what we're doing here. This, of course, has been pointing out some of the weaknesses of this army if we get caught by their cavalry. So we're still going to win this. But potentially we can just have a little second look at this battle and see how we can do it a little bit more cleanly by making sure we take care of our actual of our flanks against those cav. In case you're interested in that opening battle there, it's actually a very good victory when you look at it, but it certainly can be a fair bit cleaner if we make sure this time that we secure our flanks. This time then, with us on top of the hill once more, we're going to make sure that we have all of our siege equipment ready to go, and we're going to pick our target much more specifically. We've got ourselves some infantry over here on our slightly more open flank, as well as our legionary cavalry ready to do some better countering against their cavalry. Now, if you do have the cavalry advantage, and you've got yourself a load of legionary cav, by all means go around, take out theirs, get around the back. But chances are that they're going to have a fair few chariots, and you're going to want to hold position and get some good shots in against them. So I would probably say we want these catapults to maybe be aiming at, say, those there chariots. Why not? Let's go and pick off some of these guys. That's probably what I want to do. So let's just start hitting some of these. These guys can just shoot straight into the middle. That will be absolutely magnificent. And they're going to start landing horrible hits on us. So yes, if you have the cavalry advantage, definitely make good use of it. Now, in terms of archers, we definitely want to be shooting these chariots because they are what's going to cause me most annoyance. I can deal with the damage from these guys. Not worried about the infantry. I'm not worried about their archers. We can deal with them in time. Their advantage is their chariots. Let's go and nullify that strength of theirs. Let's go and deal with these Nile Cav as well. We're going to go and snipe them. Desert Axemen are pretty darn weak to a charge, so let's just get on the front foot here and deal with them. General's going to get himself javelined. Excellent work, and these guys can just be pulled back. This time, we've done a much better job of dealing with some of these chariots. That means this flank has been much better catered for. So with these guys just getting on top of that position, their archers can now change themselves over to those guys instead, and you over to them. We can just try and hold this off a little bit longer here. This is looking much more tidy. There we go. Egyptian chariots, javelins doing the job against the general. Excellent. More boulders coming in. That is going to be annoying. Soon as we can get around that flank, I want to do that. I'm actually going to say my cav now go and do that, because I think with those chariots being cleared off, we're in a good position to start getting on with that flank there. Those guys need to deal with them. We're going to go and get those javelin cav who help deal with those chariots to go and clear them off, and we're going to tell these guys to just get around the flank of them. Thank you very much. Send your infantry through those gaps. Send these infantry forward so that we can start to cause them all sorts of problems. You go and skirmish because that's what you're good at. These guys go and deal with the Pharaoh's bowmen. Now we've got more chariots to deal with. This is a slight problem. We haven't sniped off those guys yet. Again, use our archers. Keep them protected where possible. They could still be a little bit annoying. Let's just get these cavalry to deal with them. We can worry about the chariots a little bit more if they get too close. So just keep them dancing. They're routed. That's lovely. These guys are gone as well. That's perfect. Front line is gone. Cavalry Auxilia doing a nice job dealing with those chariots. Excellent work at this point. There are some phalanxes there. We'll just take the chance that we break them all at this point. We might do. You never know. But we'll try and get a cavalry through that mess, and we'll try and get them around the back to those oranges. I mentioned earlier that the Roman armoured general is an awful lot better. Lads, you're getting in the way of our charge. Thank you very much. And yes, these guys are much more unkillable. I'm going to go and send them just to mop up this general here. Also the Nile Cav, who are causing us a few problems. And we're just going to chase down the last of those guys. As for the rest of the battle, though, it's actually going exactly how you would hope. There's a few archers just hanging around. We might as well go and chase them down. Onagers are now gone. Most of them are fleeing the battlefield. This has been a much more effective way of fighting it. Just make sure you take out their strengths and you should be absolutely fine. And this time with everyone routing, I think we can just end the battle there. So we're going to quit that, and you can see similar amount of kills, but an awful lot less in terms of what we have taken this time. Stand your ground, make use of those infantry, take advantage of their lack of mobility, and to be honest, yeah, it's really about just making sure against the likes of Egypt that your cavalry auxilia, your gladiators, those odd little random units can be surprisingly useful just to plug gaps, just to deal with some of those slightly more awkward units. But we've got good siege gear, we've got the archers, so we can shoot down those chariots, and all is well with the world. Into the late game we go, and of course now we can bring all of the best post-Marian toys to the party. The Romans obviously have magnificent troops, but we do have one small problem with that, which is that whilst we have magnificent troops, so do our enemies. In the late game, of course, you will be taking on the Brutii, the Julii, SPQR. Your fellow Romans have pretty much the same roster as you, so how are we going to make the difference? Well, at sea, of course, there's the Corvus Quinquereme and the Decere, which are going to give the Scipii here a good little advantage. But on land, it's pretty darn equal aside from those gladiators. But you will notice I've given us golden sword and shield. Between the Foundry and, of course, our Temple to Hephaestus, you should be getting these out of at least some of your cities by the time the Civil War rolls around. And if you can do that, it's going to give you a slight edge against your Roman enemies. As for our units here, I've decided to go with no auxiliary. We've just got all of the heavy lads coming along here, urban cohorts to take on theirs, the archers to match up, shoot some people down from a distance, maybe just add some fire, a touch of morale, always helpful in any battle. I might just switch that over straight away. We have actually brought along some dogs. I do like the war dogs. Now, they're not going to do any damage to late game Romans, unfortunately. They really do struggle in the post-Marian units, but they do still do good morale damage. So with that and the flaming arrows, it might just make a slight difference. Now, most importantly, we're going to have to figure out how we can beat these guys. And the AI is not going to be as organised as you. So I'm going to keep things fairly sensible. I'm going to send my legionary cavalry in to go and take on their legionary cav. In fact, I've brought the Praetorians along here, actually. So we should be, hopefully, able to take these guys out. A few missiles hidden in nice and early. A few extra arcani, just to make sure we've got a bit of auxiliary infantry here, just to pounce where possible, and hopefully we can win ourselves a nice little cavalry engagement. With the cavalry defeated early doors, we should be in a good position to start making the flanks that we're going to need ultimately to tear apart the infantry, because you might get stuck in a very long and painful battle with infantry if that's where we get stuck. Now, of course, you can see the onagers firing at us. I probably would suggest it's a good idea to go and take those guys out. So I might well go and send these guys over here to go and do that and keep some of these infantry busy. If you do send your cavalry out like this, you'll probably find that their line gets broken up. Indeed, I've kind of picked this map to show exactly how the AI might well get themselves torn apart a little bit badly positioned. So we'll see if they can actually create a proper front against us soon enough. But if you can win these flanks nice and early, you should be in a very good position indeed. So we'll just leave our catapults to do what they want. We'll send this cavalry to go take care of them, and their infantry seem very, very distracted indeed by our cavalry. Let's go and bring these guys back towards the centre. You can see the odd onager shot has just caused us a fair bit of damage out here. But yeah, their Velite gladiators out on the flank here, not doing too much of a good job, no. Yes, we have managed to funnel them with this particular battlefield. So, you know what, I'm going to bring these guys over at this point and see if we can create an actual infantry front to go and face them with. Now, the longer you can delay them, that's for the best. And that's kind of what we're doing here with this particular map. We're just delaying them just to make sure they are a little bit more tired, a little bit more whittled down by the time the actual infantry battle takes hold. So yes, I do have the advantage of positioning here, but that's what you need to do. You have very similar troops. Take your advantages where you can get them. So I'm going to send in some dogs around about now over to this part, just to see what we can do, see if we can break these guys as they arrive into this battlefield. So you can see our cav here is taking them on. They do have some light auxilia back here who are causing us a bit of problems because I'm standing around and commentating instead of actually doing the battle. So we get the Arcani to keep on fighting. But if you do have face-to-face battles here, you can see here, these are Praetorians in their case, it's going to be a close, chunky affair, and ultimately you will end up losing quite a lot if you just face them front on. So as much as possible, as I say, try and outmaneuver them. Try and get around the back. Use these cav as much as possible. And we're going to use some archers. There we are. There the dogs have been eating up some of these guys, and they are now cleared out. We can see there's a few guys around the back here, so we might actually just grab these guys just to go and clear them out. Make sure your flanks are protected. Make sure you're the one doing the flanking. Generally with the Romans, I find that they won't have as many units as you when it actually comes to the cavalry. You can normally win the cavalry battle. And ultimately, yes, you can probably see here that the archers, when I'm not paying attention, are indeed being flanked. So down goes the general, a very pixelated looking field, and we're now going to pick them off. You can see they're doing the same thing as us, trying to get around the back and deal with those annoying catapults. But ultimately, yeah, we managed to split them up quite nice in this battlefield, and basically we've torn them apart. And with victory soon enough in our grasp, we have indeed won quite handily. The slight advantage of these golden sword and shields certainly helps. We'll do have one more look, but we'll maybe pick a slightly more open battlefield. This is just a good example of trying to make sure you and your human brain can make good use of the terrain where possible. Into a second battle, this time in the field, and we're going to go for the same basic principle, which is use your cavalry to snipe theirs, get rid of their onagers, and pull them into as much of a drawn-out battle as you can. In this particular case, They are now just running on in. That's fine. They are going to be the ones who are tied. I'm letting them come to me. Down goes their general, which is excellent news. And I can now send my guys to go and cause them as many problems as possible. We'll go back onto flaming arrows once again. We'll bring the cavalry into there. It looks like we've won the cavalry battle out at the flank and taken out the onagers as well. Unfortunately, one of ours has routed, but frankly, that's its job and I'm quite happy about it. So we're just going to start to get a little bit more aggressive now, because we are going to be able to close the trap with the unit or two cavalry who are in the rear, and that's pretty much what they're there for. And this cavalry now is doing a very good job of distracting the rest, which means they're not coming in as one big horrible blob of infantry, which are going to be pretty unkillable. Instead, they're going to get themselves surrounded, and they're not going to be very well defended against. Yes, you see, the trap is starting to close in on these guys, and they are falling apart very, very quickly indeed. Still one unit of Praetorian cavalry here, causing just a few problems, but most of them are falling apart. Yeah, very nice indeed. So, as I'd say, keep them distracted, pull them around, make sure that they're not just one horrible blob of infantry, because then they can fight forever. But like this, we're pretty much picking them off. Easy pickings. Very nice. And that battle was over before it even started, to be honest with you. They are scattered all over the place. Without a clear front line hitting ours, they do not stand and fight. We can hit them with the cavalry as long as we win that battle. If you don't have the cavalry advantage, of course you want to keep it a little bit tighter, but I would say just try and dominate the cavalry when it comes to your fellow Romans. And once you've got that maneuverability, you can cause them so many problems. That is all for now. If you've enjoyed the video, then do please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Your support really does mean an awful lot to me. Indeed, I do actually run a membership both here and on Patreon, should you want to support the channel further. Links are in the description if you're interested. And finally, we have recently started our Seleucid live streams, which makes them the next faction in this guide series. Do join in those live streams if you can. The more people who join in, the more interesting the discussion becomes. But for now, though, I will leave you. I'm Nerdist the Human, and this has been my Battlefield Tactics Guide for the Roman Scipii in Rome Total War. Thank you, friends, and tally-ho. They're all queuing up to fight them. These are truly the British rebels right here. War cry and charge at the dogs of war. Oh, they're routing again. What are you doing, my silly trumpet? They're actually taking on my reinforcements. Welcome to the Rebel Experience, ladies and gents.